Good evening, everyone. This is Kathy L. Murphy channeling Bette Davis and now Voyager from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law. And we are having a double feature tonight on our book and film club with my co-host, Robert Gwaltney, looking very dapper, very much like one of the fine gentlemen in the film, Now Voyager. And we also have special guest, Chicago author Ruthie Landis, who is also channeling our next film feature, which is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. Awesome, awesome. Yes, that's just fabulous. Well, anyway, now you know what I look like when I don't pluck my eyebrows. So, or wear makeup, but I was trying to be as dowdy as possible, which really wasn't any problem. So it took me like 5 seconds because Barbara just left. So I am pleased to be here. Double feature. What a deal. We are now watching this beautiful, this may be one of my favorite movies of all time, because in my home at Murphy's Law, I have literally a virtual tribute to Bette Davis. Oh, yes. This hangs in my home, and it's by an artist that is from Philadelphia by the name of R. Gillum. And it even has his address, but this was, I think, done back years and years ago. It's vintage. But I have her with me at all times to inspire me to be brave and to not worry about how you look when you do a role. And I think you could see what I'm talking about. You're as cute as a button, Ruthie.
So she
would have made a good geisha. Anyway, so Robert, let's start with you. Let's talk about this film, Now Voyager. How many times do you think you've seen this film?
Oh my gosh, probably at least a dozen times, throughout the years. I first saw it when I was a little boy, and I watched it, actually just a couple of months ago. And it's a favorite of mine. I love the transformation story.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's a Cinderella story of where this, with this overbearing, controlling mother who makes this woman practically her child, her slave. And she has to succumb to every one of her whims or wishes. And she finds her voice in this film, doesn't she? It's pretty amazing.
She does. Yeah.
And I love the title, Now Voyager. This is one time where I felt like the film itself really, the title really fit the storyline too.
It's the title is from a Walt Whitman poem, The Untold Want, which reads in its entirety: "The untold want by life and land ne'er granted, now Voyager, sail thou forth to seek and find."
I love that so much because, I hate to say this, but I could really relate to this film. I won't go into any details, but I'm telling you, it reminded me a lot of certain people in my family. So I think that's why I've watched it over and over and over again, because I love how she goes from her cocoon and then she blossoms into this beautiful, wonderful butterfly. And the transformation is pretty amazing. And it's always amazing to me. They said, oh, later on in life, Bette Davis didn't look so good. Actually, Bette Davis always looked pretty good for her age, but they did the ludicrous makeup for all these roles that she played, like, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and even Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte. She was over the top past her Southern Belle prime. They kind of overdid the makeup. But I have always been fascinated with clothing and makeup, how it can change totally. I love to do makeovers. And I love to watch makeovers because it's always amazing. I'm gonna have to take these off because I'm seeing double, because these are actually prescription glasses. But I'm always amazed at how people can be totally transformed by just wardrobe and makeup. And they did an outstanding job. And yeah, you like these eyebrows? I mean, they are
Yeah.
Well, I also want to say that so this is one of my favorite films too. In fact, I walked down the aisle for my wedding to the now Voyager theme song.
Is that right? Well, it's just perfect that you're here.
You know, that background, Max Steiner, his music, I mean, was to die for. I mean, it really was. And that theme, you know, just kept in my head, you know, and I was like, you know, even though it didn't end sort of the way we might have imagined, it still was a win. It was a win. And I also want to say that she didn't start as an ugly duckling. It was on the boat and she was adorable and she was young, remember? And she was having the affair. It's always how it starts that is so important to a transformation story, because most transformation stories are like the ugly duckling transforming, but she wasn't an ugly duckling. She was a beautiful little young girl. And that guy said to her, he would marry her, the one that she was making out with, on the ship. So it starts on a ship. And then after that event, her mother shamed her so and made her into that, you know, shamed creature, you know, and that had no voice anymore, had no joie de vivre anymore and everything. And then, so she had the potential and then she was squashed. And in a way that is even more poignant, isn't it? Because her potential was destroyed by this mother who was so threatened by her and didn't want her, but then decided, well, how can I use her? And so from my point of view, it was even more profound than just, you know, an ugly duckling turning into a swan. It was a beauty turning into a completely repressed human being.
And have you all seen well, I've watched both the film and the documentary Grey Gardens.
Yes.
On you remember the story about how they were beautiful mother-daughter, you know, and it kind of reminded me of what the mother did to the daughter when she lost all of her financial support. She leaned on her daughter so much that she basically ruined her daughter's life, and there was no happy ending on that for sure. But we see these stories play out in different variations, and even though I've known friends that, you know, have been in those same kind of situations. But from a male perspective, Robert, what was it that attracted you to this film the most?
Well, yeah, I think that, I mean, for me, you know, I've always loved, you know, a bit of a fairy tale, and I love when she's on the boat and you don't see her for a while, and then she, when they're exiting, and she just makes this very glamorous exit. You know, I think they start the shot at her leg or maybe at the hat. I can't quite remember, but you don't really see her. She reveals her face very slowly, and it's just in this wonderful moment. And I think that, you know, I love to see the arc of her character. You know, again, as Ruthie said, you know, you started off hopeful. There was an opportunity for love, and then her mother got her hooks into her. And when we see her, I don't know, how low would you say Charlotte Vale is when the story begins? Late 30s, maybe?
You mean when she's on the first boat?
No.
When
late
the story
30s.
actually begins of them living together in the house, and
right. She's been, so you figure if she was 18 on the boat, let's just say, and then yeah, like 20 years later. It is like 20 years later, I would think. And the other thing I just have to say that was blew me away as a therapist is in 42, the movie, that they would portray mental illness and breakdown with an actual like a guy who was really good at what he did. I mean, he was really good at what he did. And in those days, mental illness or having a breakdown, and of course she had to break down, right? So she could rise up out of the ashes. She had to, right? And so I just was very blown away how progressive, I suppose, the way they portrayed mental illness, not from the point of view of the mother, of course, but like the sister-in-law. That the sister-in-law was so sweet and nice and cared about her and saw what had happened to her.
I know.
It was just so there was good people like the sister-in-law. The niece went through a transformation too, from being so judgmental, I think, and mean.
And the niece was so accepted, and she was just sassy and, stylish, and the one scene that just killed me is when she comes back home and she's glammed out, and her mother just tells her, I've had all your clothes, you can wear your black, whatever.
Can you imagine? I've had the tailor take it all because you're not fat anymore.
She goes, Mother, I've lost 25, 30 pounds. It's not going to fit. She goes, I've had everything altered and I'm keeping the seamstress on in case there needs to be any more. And you need to, let your hair grow out. And I was just like,
I know. I know. And what would make, all I kept thinking was, how hard it is to play a villain. And the mother was a villain, right? But I always look in the villain for a reason, that they were such a monster, really. And I couldn't see what it was. I mean, I knew she was threatened. I knew she was a widow. I knew she was conditioned, but she made no transformation at all until she croaked and died.
Well, the fairy tale story is that they do, but in real life, these people don't, and you never do find out why they are the way they are. And no matter how much soul searching and therapy you may go through or whatever, you just still can't find out why some people do certain things. And I always say something must have happened in their childhood. That's the only thing I can think of. Everything okay, Robert?
I heard this really loud noise and the house sort of shook a bit. I went outside. Everything seems to be okay. It was just really peculiar.
Think it was a sonic boom?
I don't know. It was unsettling. So
it's
maybe it was Bette Davis's ghost.
It was, or her mother.
I think it was probably her mother. But there's no better actress to portray these kind of characters than Bette Davis. She is the strongest actress in the world, but her ability to show her vulnerability in almost every film that she does, where she is bullied, or even in Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, which we watched sometime back, her family kind of all bullied her into thinking, if enough people tell you you're crazy, you start to believe it. So I commend her on this role. Now, did this film win any Academy Awards? Did it?
Let's see. So, of course, it's a 1942 film. It was based on the novel of the same name by Olive Higgins Prouty. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that properly. Let's see. Did it win any awards? Production, box office, critical reception. I can't really tell, but it.
It's not unusual that some of the greatest films didn't even get recognized
I
because
know.
they weren't, blockbuster, whatever it was.
It's just like when A Wonderful Life, when A Wonderful Life came out, people didn't even like it. I think it hit too close to home. It's hard to watch a film. I have a friend that's going through cancer, and she watched a show on Netflix, and it was about a man who lost his wife because a drug company paid off a smaller drug company. They come up with a cure for his wife's type of cancer. She goes, I couldn't watch it. It just, I'm dealing with that right now. And I just thought that's the way it is.
What was 1942 in relationship to the wars? What was going on there?
Well, that was all the time that we were headed that way. We were headed to World War II, and we had some of probably the strongest women of this century were of that era, because they went through the Depression, then they went through the war. All the men went off to war. This is just a little bit later, but they all went off to war, and so they had to keep the home fires burning, and they all had to take on the men's jobs too. They were working, Rosie the Riveter. They were working at airplane plants. They were recycling for tin and foil and different things for different things. I mean, chocolate bars, Wrigley's gum were all just kind of just total luxuries. But I shared on Facebook another wonderful thing I discovered. It's the fashions that were present in this film. A woman goes through and talks about what all the costume changes. I didn't get to watch all of it before I had to come here, but I just put it on Facebook. You've got to watch it, because just the way the clothes, that was probably the era I love the clothes the most. It really seemed to flatter women, but not make them objects of, the 50s was all about the bombshell and, Marilyn Monroe, but the 40s was about making women attractive, but strong. And that's why the shoulder pads, the tailored, the way they wore their clothes was smart. The silk flowered pins, the hats, even the hair was all artfully arranged and just elegant. And to this day, whenever I wear a hat, if I see an older gentleman, they always come up to me and they go, I just love a woman in a hat. And I just always get so tickled by it, because they go, there's nothing more attractive than a woman in a hat. And but the men wore them too. I mean, do you have some of those hats like they had, those fedoras from the 1940s, Robert?
Yes. Well, nothing from the 1940s, but yes, sort of in that style. Absolutely.
I had a gray felt one that I wish I still had. I lost it. I lose things and move. So, but it was a perfectly 1940 felt fedora. And I bought it to go with a coat one year when I went to college, and everybody thought I was such a weirdo. Nobody wore 1940s hats in the 1970s, but I did, because I'm just not normal. But
I did too.
Did you really?
As a theater major, yes, I did too. I would go to thrift stores because I couldn't afford it, and I would buy hats. Would wear hats.
Well, I shared on my birthday the cool hat that my cousins got me at this estate sale. I'm always looking. People say, you must have a lot of clothes. And I go, I have a lot of costumes that I can mix and match. And, they're not really all quite authentic, because I mix, stuff up, but it gives you the idea to lend to the story. I think it lends to the story when we play dress up. And it's so much fun to, do some of my favorite. I went as a trapper one year for girlfriend weekend, and I had a, coonskin hat with a fox coming over it, and I had dirt on my face and all this stuff. And it was my favorite costume. I've never been so comfortable in my life. But it's fascinating, the fashions in this show too. They were, the men dressed, the women dressed, and even the woman was clearly lost in the past. The way she was a dowager. I mean, she was, frumpy and still wearing clothes from 20 years ago. And we all know people like that. I
Yeah,
can
and she was
remember,
like unloved and unlovable, in a way. There was no love, and there was, toward others or toward back to her, because she was so unlovable. But can I build on something that I think you nailed about Bette Davis? And I wish more of the actors in our era would use a certain technique that she did, and that was that she was. I'm watching this amazing series called A Place to Call Home, and it's kind of in the Downton Abbey.
I watched that. That's great.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it's
God.
great.
And you're watching these people, and like they wear the mask of being strong, right? They wear the mask, and only at just very select moments does the mask slip, and you see what's underneath the mask. But Bette Davis was a master of that, where she would not cry. And I think in films these days, people cry all the time. They just cry, cry, cry. And I think she wouldn't cry, but her eyes would become liquid. And then she'd push it down, and then it'd start to come up again. And you could watch her like struggling with
That control.
the mask and what was underneath. And she was just a master of that, so that the vulnerability wasn't kind of drenchy, it was selective. It was just in the right moment. And I don't think that there's anybody that really can pull that off to the degree that she does. But I am watching that happen in the series, and see these Australian actors and British actors, they do have that capacity. They understand that in a way that I don't think American actors do very much.
Barbara Stanwyck was another one of my favorite actors, and she was that way too, except she didn't show any femininity. And Bette Davis did, and Barbara Stanwyck was just so, gosh, remember Big Valley? She was just about as stern and stiff as you could be. And then she was magnificent in the Thornbirds. I just loved her in the Thornbirds. But Bette Davis, there'll never be another one like her for sure. She was powerful, but I think she was misunderstood. I think people base their beliefs on these people, the real life people, on the parts that they play. And what they don't understand is they're playing a part. It's not exactly who they are. That's why so many actors say they're shy, and you go, no way. And they say it to me all the time. How could you be shy? I go, I'm painfully shy. But if I'm with my people, my little tribe, I'm fine. But you put me in a room where I don't know a soul, I just blend in with the wallpaper.
I think what I think happened with Bette Davis was that she really was a full person, but the industry and the way they used actors in those days, she really bucked the system. And that's what created, like she and Joan Crawford were like, fighting after roles and stuff like that. And she got a reputation because she did threaten people, because she was a feminist. She was really trying to change the rules back then. And she had a story that kind of similar to oh my God, just went out of my head, Debbie Reynolds.
I love Debbie Reynolds.
But where she had to be tough, and she took care of everything. She really didn't have men in her life that loved her and protected her and took care of her at all. So she got that reputation because, you know, like that she was a bitch, because she had to act a certain way in order to forward the movement that women now have because of her, because of people like her. That's my feeling, what would happen to her. And it was also, yes, she played those roles because she could, but personally, she was struggling to find equality in a time when women didn't have it.
Yep, she sure forged her own path. And I know there's some great quotes in the film too, Robert. You posted one of them up on Facebook for one of your teaser about the moon. And I just, you know, when she delivers a line, you don't forget it. You know, it's one of those things that's just, she makes something quotable. Very much so. So, yeah. What about the men's roles in the film? What did you, how did you feel about all, you know, the women are I think the main characters, but the men, if we didn't have them in there, we wouldn't get the full picture. I just wonder.
He was just like, what was he? You know, like I kept thinking, what Enneagram type was he? Because he had this sort of loyalty to his awful wife, and he just wouldn't budge toward happiness, you know, because he had this kind of, I don't know, morality.
Well, you remember Katharine Hepburn and you know, people didn't get divorced. It was considered bad, you know, just the worst thing in the world. Nowadays, if you're not divorced 10 or 20 times, you haven't lived.
Yeah, but you're right, Spencer Tracy, he wouldn't get a divorce, and yet they were a couple out there, you know, and I think she was kind of going, yeah, that's what and it's okay with me. I mean, it was kind of like, it was okay with her.
And Humphrey Bogart did the same thing with,
yeah.
It was just a different era. But when I think about my own grandparents of that era, they were equals. And my mother and father weren't. Isn't that funny? My father was always the one in charge. But with my grandfather and my grandmother, they shared, I don't know how to describe it. They just had they did everything together, and they shared a common goal. But it changed in the, you know, 50s. And then the 60s started to really change the way women were seeing the world. And by the 70s, my goodness, it was way different than this era. But we're seeing it again on this new century. I mean, we're seeing it again. We're going through all the same things that we went through in the 1920s all over again. There was a big story about it, how all this new technology was coming in, how we're all trying to relate to this, how women are now like the new women of the turn of the century, you know, after the last 1900s. But this film, I think, is going to be one that'll be watched for a long time, because it is a perfect time capsule piece for that period of time, for the roles that men and women were playing in the world, you know.
Well, I again want to bring up the doctor, the psychiatrist, because so he was the other male figure, and he was different, really, wasn't he? He
really was
so progressive, and didn't look at mental illness as something to look down on. And I mean, it was so forward of him. He walked, I mean, he meets her and he walks up the stairs into her bedroom. Yeah. How brilliant. And then he sees the carved boxes, and, you know, that she has some artistry and some, which she did. And then once, you know, mom, you know, like once she took over that house, there were parties and they were roasting weenies in the fireplace. Like, could you imagine if that didn't kill her mother before,
Right.
it would have killed her mother after, right?
Absolutely. No fun in this home to be had, Charlotte. And
I
then
know
me-
women just like that. Fun is bad, you know. I was actually told once in college that you're having fun doing what you're doing, then you're not doing anything good. I go, what? And she goes, art is not fun. And I thought, maybe not to you, but it sure is to me. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And I'm just really, really excited.
It's about prosperity, my darling girl. It's about prosperity and abundance and manifestation.
I'm going to tell you something. It worked. It worked.
Oh, good.
I got a private story to share with you, but last night.
The top, can I just tell you the top, which
Yeah.
is the citrine,
Yes.
is about removing obstacles. So you call your house Murphy's Law. So I was like, okay, we got to get no Murphy's Law. We don't want the worst thing that can happen to
Well,
happen.
we're going to change the meaning of Murphy's Law.
Okay, that's great. But the citrine is supposed to actually transform obstacles.
What this is one of the many gifts that Ruthie sent me for my birthday, and I carry it around the house. It fits perfectly into the palm. Can you see this?
Yes.
Into the palm of your hands. And Claire Fullerton and I were and so I'm so mad because if I don't find that recording of where I was showing everybody what you got me for my birthday, I was just, Madeline and I were opening the box, and every time it pulled out one of those silk saris, and I was just going, oh my God, I think I may swoon. and Robert's a gift giver too. I mean, every time I turn around, he sent me my favorite perfume for no reason. And you know what? The things about that we learn from watching these films, and when people get away from those people, I'm going, go to people who will support and love you. And if somebody is like that, the best thing you can do in your life is get good therapy and distance yourself from people that their life is too short to be around somebody that negative. And that's what I learned. And every time I watch that, I resolve my efforts to not let people bring me down. And why do people do it? And I've always thought, and I believe that it's people that are the most insecure about themselves that have to bring other people down. Bullies are actually been bullied. And so in order to make themselves feel better, but anyway,
it's still, you can make a choice to not be around. You just have to make a choice. You can say, go and be well. I don't wish you any harm, but there's a thing in Fiddler on the Roof where they go, may God bless and keep the czar far away from us. So in other words, go well, be okay, but just leave me alone. Stay far away, for sure.
There's enough negativity in this world to be spreading it any further. So that's why I so look forward to my book and film club every night. And they go, why do you get so excited? I go, because it's so much fun. I get to talk to Robert and Ruthie about movies and about how it makes us feel. And there's no right or wrong answers. We all bring our own experiences into the talking about it. We get to play dress up, and it's fun being somebody else for a while. It really is. You are adorable. In fact, I got to take a picture of this because if we lose this,
she's talking to you, Robert.
No,
I'm going to take a picture of both of you.
Adorable.
You're both adorable.
So
And
Ruthie,
I always.
so
Okay,
did you have
keep
that?
talking. Keep
Did you
talking.
have that wig at home?
I bought it on Amazon for $19.99.
My goodness.
I have one almost exactly
these
like
are-
it in the other room.
But these are my chopsticks.
But mine have different chopsticks, and they only have hair that goes down one side. But
Yes, I have 3. I have a braid.
Oh, I didn't see the braid.
have a braid.
But you look good as a brunette too. You're one of these people that you are a real chameleon. Okay, smile, because I'm taking first a black and white, and then I'm going to take you guys a color, because nobody's going to believe that's you. I just put a bunch of photos of me, and people are going to go,
Nobody see you. You, because you're always glamorous with your hat, and even when you're with in your car and your
I think
sunglasses.
that people will think you've fallen on hard times.
kind of have. I kind of have. If you ever have your computer go down, let me tell you, it's the worst time in the world. And I will tell everybody who's watching this recording that right now, half the reason why my computer can't be fixed and I couldn't use it was the computer place we've been going to, the several ones we've been going to, they can't get the computer cords that can hook your laptop to your television, because it's just a screen that's broke on my computer. And if I could plug it into my TV, I would have access to everything, but they don't have the cords. And these are the biggest computer chains in the country. So what happens if your laptop computer cord goes down, and it's supposed to get worse because the China trade is being, so what happens? So I'm going Monday tomorrow, and I'm going to see if I can find a backup cord and go to several places and see if I can find some of these things before we get into this lockdown.
The HDMI is what plugs into your, then you can use your TV as your monitor.
Right. That's what I was trying to do. So, and then Barbara she said, well, you found my laptop for me. I'm just going to give it to you because I never use it. I cannot even comprehend that kind of generosity.
Well, you should, because as my beloved, may she rest in peace, mother would always say, what goes around comes around.
No, it's
and that's in the negative. What goes around comes around in the negative, but what goes around comes around in the positive. And people can't believe your generosity of commitment to creating Pulpwood Queens. I mean, come on, Kathy.
I am a little bit overwhelmed. For people listening, I got over 500 messages yesterday. And here, I've been sitting here for 2 years thinking, where is everybody? Everybody's there, but everybody's dealing with so much stuff. And these, you have to get outside yourself. And when you find these things happen, so I've redoubled my effort on wishing everybody happy birthday, because I found it really means a lot, when somebody, especially somebody you haven't heard from since college days or whatever, sends you a happy birthday. It really means a lot, or kids you grew up with. And that is the magic and miracle of Facebook. But there is some type of, it's storming here, you guys. I mean, it's turned dark and it's pouring down rain, and it's weird. It's strange. And I saw flocks of birds flying south in V's yesterday. I was outside and I go, what's going on? It's a little early.
Yeah, well, isn't the hurricane or whatever, maybe that's affecting?
I don't know. It's really strange, but New Orleans, they got two, they're going to be hitting the Gulf, and it's not good. We escape through reading and books and listening to music and things, because the world is changing right before our eyes. But if we just wait for it, it's going to get better. That's the thing that I learned on my birthday. I thought, oh man, all this stuff is happening. And then I waited for it. And some things happened today that were just life affirming, I have to tell you. So I'm thankful we're here. And I just love this film. I hope everybody who's watching this on my Kathy L. Murphy channel will watch now Voyager. And even later, you can jump in at any time and message us and say what you think. You can go on the channel and you can make comments. And I think when we do open back up, we'll get more people on board. But in the meantime, we're having fun, aren't we?
We're having so much fun. And of course, I love speaking with both of you who are storytellers and authors, because what I look for when I am doing two movies next to each other is, oh my God, how are the story lines similar?
Oh, yeah.
What are the threads in each of those stories that are almost the same?
That would be interesting. I've got to think about that a little bit, ponder it a bit. But
Isn't it a transformative story the same way? She gets brought in, she gets mistreated by
yes, you're
everybody
right.
who's a little,
Absolutely.
she gets mistreated. She's told she's can't be a geisha, that she's not, good enough, pretty enough. She's going to be the slave of the mother there. And then it's a guy who sees her, and he's older than her, much older than her, but he is the catalyst for her transformation, right?
And it's such a beautiful film. The book, Arthur Golden's book, I don't know how long ago I read that book, but it's one of those, in my first book, I think I said there are some books that never leave your thoughts. And that is one of them, mostly because I couldn't believe a man wrote that book, because the way he described the feelings and the thoughts and the just, the tactile touching of the beautiful, beautiful silk boxed, and how they store all those gorgeous, oh, they're just so beautiful to me. And
well, he must have had a lot of feminine energy, as a human being himself, so that he could touch into that.
And who doesn't love a kimono?
Right.
I mean, that's the go-to for me, but it's just such a beautiful thing. And to watch how somebody is literally blossoms, just, yeah, I guess you're right. We do have two women blossoming right before our eyes in both of these films. That's a really good idea. Maybe we should do some more comparative.
I love the double feature idea.
I do too.
And you know how we didn't know, it was sort of an unconscious thing because you had chosen it and then we had to cancel. And so it got put together by the universe, by your magic wand. And as I was watching, so I watched now Voyager again for the umpteenth time. And then I watched Memoir of a Geisha, and it was the second time I saw it, but me too, that book, I don't know what it does. Maybe it's a past life thing for me, but it got under my skin.
It did me too. I've always been fascinated with different cultures and people, but that story, it's kind of like Lisa C. wrote Snowflower and the Secret Fan. That's another one because of the way they folded the children's toes under and bound them.
Yeah.
And when I went with Lisa to the Pan Asian Museum in Pasadena, and she gave me the tour, and they were having a beautiful girl. It's when the beautiful Asian girls were dressed in American like clothing and scenarios to promote products. They had this, it was a propaganda type thing, but they still had the very much the beautiful painted faces. And we went to that museum. They had their shoes that were actually made, and they were this long for grown women. Their heels actually go up into their ankle, the way they deform their feet, and they're cobbled for life. They can't walk. So a lot of times they have to be carried.
And there's something about there being a fetishism around it being sexy to have these clumped feet. It's so weird.
Horrible. It's and that scene where they actually take the child to do the thing, to this day I can still hear the bones cracking in her toes, and I just think, oh, thank God I live in this era, but I don't want to go back to that time or that place or the way that. But there's lots of weird customs we have around the world where it hurts people, literally maims them for life. And I think we're very lucky, especially with life circumstances right now, with everything that's going on in Afghanistan and Somalia and all these different things that are happening around the world. But when we watch these things, then maybe we can be a little bit more understanding of why this persona in behavior is, because everybody I've ever known that is from the Asian type communities, they have a certain type of, it's like demure behavior, but yet these women are tigers. I mean, talk about their children are going to become doctors. All my friends that are in different professions, when they go after what they want, there's nothing stopping them. But maybe it's because they're looking at what was behind them. We need to learn in America that growing up and finding a profession is our greatest calling. It's not being handed everything or inheriting everything. I mean, so many kids aren't working today because they're getting more money on the handouts from the COVID, unemployment or whatever. My sister's just struggling trying to find anybody to work in the restaurant, as is every restaurant in town, and nobody wants to work. And I don't know about that, because to me, when I work really hard on something and I accomplish that goal, I have such a sense of pride that nobody can take that away from you. So if you're a young person listening to this, if you earn it, it will mean so much more. And just like I imagine Arthur Golden,
the fan dance, she worked really hard at that, and she was able to. So Ruthie, I think you're going to recreate that number where she appears on stage with really big shoes.
Oh, I didn't bring my fans.
I have lots of fans. I have a collection of church fans from all over the world. So
I love that moment of theater where her hair is down, the cherry blossoms are floating all around her, and then the snow, just stunning.
It was a magnificent performance. So bringing us to the the idea of the fan and the mask, that comes back to what we were talking about before about the mask. But what I also want to say is, to be a geisha was to be extremely powerful, and to be the top geisha, which is what she became, was to be the breadwinner for the whole household, and was also to have men falling at your feet. And I think it's really interesting about how she went from completely powerless to very, very, very powerful.
Well, and she sold her virginity for an astronomical amount. I was reading about the author actually had interviewed this renowned geisha. She later sued him, not because of concerns about the plot, but because of some of the characters looking or appearing too close to the people that she had disclosed in private conversations. And she sold her virginity for $850,000.
That was an expensive cherry.
I know it was. I was just thinking, I think I sold mine for a movie ticket, a box of goobers, and a large Diet Coke.
my. I'm hiding behind the fan on that one. Woo-wee.
But if you, I want to.
That was the best I ever heard. At least you got something for yours.
Oh.
I just got the experience.
Yeah. Wasn't that trip to Canada?
Yes.
Remember the trip?
Spring
You
break.
didn't forget. Kathy, you didn't forget.
No.
That story. I'll
It's
never
funny.
forget it because I was like, huh?
No, well, I was thinking about Ruthie today and that spring break story when I was reading about the Geisha having sold her virginity for 850. Smackaroos, that's crazy. So I want to read the opening of the novel, just a couple of paragraphs.
That would be great.
Wonderful.
Suppose that you and I were sitting in a quiet room overlooking a garden, chatting and sipping at our cups of green tea while we talked about something that had happened a long while ago. And I said to you, that afternoon when I met so-and-so was the very best afternoon of my life, and also the very worst afternoon. I expect you might put down your teacup and say, well now, which was it? Was it the best or the worst? Because it can't possibly have been both. Ordinarily, I'd have to laugh at myself and agree with you. But the truth is that afternoon when I met Mr. Tonko Ichora really was the best and worst of my life. He seemed so fascinating to me. Even the fish smell on his hands was a kind of perfume. If I had never known him, I'm sure I would have never become a geisha. Yeah, talk about just a stunning opening.
It is. It's fascinating. Did Arthur Golden write a book after this book? He probably did.
I'm not certain. I would hate to have to follow that up,
Yeah, exactly.
I would too. It's like Falling Gone with the Wind or
Right.
or any.
Or To Kill a Mockingbird. Look at she didn't really write anything except something later that somebody republished. That was it.
Well, I think what happens when you become really famous over something, the expectations become so high that you can't deal with it. But I will tell you that as someone who's just been painting like the house is on fire, the more I work, I forget about those things. It's now just the process of the work that I get excited about, not about whether this one's going to sell for more than the one before. It's just the work itself is bringing. I've been dying to get to this painting all week. It'll be next week before I can get to it. But I think we need to understand that we need to be kinder to one another. And we also need to learn more about as many people as we can in order to have greater empathy. And then also we need to do the work. I mean, the work that was put into this film, the screenplay was magnificent. I'll have to go back and read that book. I've never read Now Voyager. Have you?
No, I've read it.
And, there's been many movies like To Kill a Mockingbird and The Wizard of Oz. When I went back and read them, or even Gone with the Wind, I watched the movie before I read the book. And I was so shocked when I read the book because it's such a little bitty part of the big story. And, nobody knew that Scarlett had been married all those many times and had all these kids and stuff. And I remember I was so shocked. But at the same time, it gave you a fuller picture of the story. But I'm going to have to check out if Arthur Golden, another book that reminds me like that. Did anybody ever read The Oldest Confederate Widow Tells All?
I did not.
By Alan Gurganus. I'm telling you, that's another book. It's really about the oldest Confederate man still living marries this 15-year-old little girl. And their story, it's absolutely one of the best books I've ever read. And Diane Lane played the young woman when they made it into film, and Donald Sutherland played the oldest Confederate. He really wasn't a general; he was a soldier. But I think I saw I read the book first, then I saw the film. But I'd love to do, and that would be something that would be fun to do too, is as our Pulpwood Queen Book Club selections become movies, we need to make those book and a movie. That would be really interesting to discuss like Marcy Hannah, when we last spoke, her book, we picked it and then it became a movie. That would be fun. I had her on the film club, I think before you came on board, Robert, but we've got a bunch of people, like we'll have to do that with Leslie Lear when her Netflix series comes out.
Yeah.
That would be
I just
so
will
much
tell
fun.
you though, it's a painful process for the author.
Oh yeah.
It's so painful because they buy it and that's it. You have no, unless you negotiate or you have artistic control, and that is a very rare thing, very rare. They just take and do whatever they want with it. They really do. So
The screenplay that was done on my book, I didn't even recognize. And it was mostly comedy, but I guess what you would call it is a dramedy. But I go, if you just told the story, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, the things that have happened. But it takes finding the right people, and they're coming, it's coming. Stephanie Chance just got approached about taking her first book to film. And she's in talks with, I said, she goes, what do you think? And I go, let me check it out. I've been through this process before, but she's a paralegal. She knows what she's doing. But I get really excited about that. I go, well, I guarantee you that when they get done with it, it's about, taking Americans to Europe. They will make it totally different than what you did for it's just a different story. Willie Morris wrote My Dog Skip, and I love the movie and I love the book. They were totally different. They didn't even have the same endings, but I think each one becomes an art form in itself. And then you just kind of have to discuss those two things. But back to Memoirs of Geisha, there was a little bit of controversy. I remember when it first came out about the actors who were
Chinese instead of Japanese.
They cast Chinese, and still to this day, people don't realize there's a difference. And I'm learning so much from watching the Bollywood films, because so many of them go into Malaysia and Indonesia and all this stuff, and they have a whole film system just done for those countries. But I'm learning the world from reading books and watching these films, and I realize how ignorant I really am. I mean, a lot of people think Dubai is a country. It is not. It's a city in the United Arab Emirates. Yeah. And everybody thinks it's a country in itself. And I've learned more about new countries. There's a lot of them that sound like Pakistan or whatever. I'm learning about all these other countries, and I didn't even know they existed. And it's fascinating. So we're all just on this journey together. And it's getting really, really yellow outside. That's kind of scary. I imagine we're getting some of this hurricane stuff, don't you think, coming this way?
Yeah.
Yeah, limbs are falling now. Weird. It's kind of strange. Maybe that's why I saw those birds making these getaways yesterday. Okay, I'm off topic again. So what else do you guys want to discuss about the film?
Well, it was a beautiful movie, of course, and it's dark at the edges. The life behind the scenes of being a geisha certainly isn't a glamorous one. Just the infighting amongst the geishas, the backbiting, and when the other geisha who was spreading rumors, really awful rumors about her virginity not being legitimate.
Well, we get glimpses into these other countries and worlds, and we think it's all still like that now. And then I don't know if you guys have seen or read the book. I have, Crazy Rich Asians, which I absolutely have to tell you, I adore that film and story, because I have a misconception on what it's like in these countries. I see everything as, even like India, all I'm seeing is Slumdog Millionaire in my mind when I think of India. And then all of a sudden I watching these other films showing all the opulence and stuff too. It's just like when you get out and see this country, you think one thing and you realize, wow, it's not like that. It's beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. I always thought New Jersey must be a horrible place to live. One of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
Isn't it? And they have the pine forest there. I could not believe it.
I couldn't either. I was so shocked. But we get tainted by shows like Jersey Shore and then I've got a book club chapter there now, Kimmer Harwanko and her wonderful book club. Actually, I have two there. And I would go back there in a heartbeat. It's beautiful. It's really pretty country. So, it's been, and the roles of both the men and women, I thought I forgot I was watching a movie. Did you guys have that experience when you watched the show Memoirs? I watched it again last week.
Well, Ruthie obviously did. Let's look at her.
It's just like, again, in a way, it is a kind of feminist movie in a way where women have to look wherever they can to find power because it's not given to them. It isn't naturally given to them. And what they have to do even the terrible Geisha that was so cruel and mean to her.
Right.
She came from some poor little village too, and people holding on and grabbing on to what little sliver of power they can have. And it just, the same thing with now Voyager. I just saw some similar themes.
It's true. It's true.
The men didn't look so hot in either of the movies.
Oh.
When I'm not saying physically handsome, right. I'm saying like they weren't written very well, like complicated people.
No, wouldn't we love to have a conversation with Arthur Golden though? I would. I remember I was just awestruck by the time I got through with that. It's, there's very few books that stick with you like that. And that's just one that, also another one is the Poisonwood Bible. The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. If you have not read that book, it's about a family of missionaries who goes to convert the natives into Christianity. And, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a nun. And after watching all those Haley Mills movies, and my mother informed me, well, you can't because you're not Catholic. My neighbors were all Catholic. And I said, well, isn't there something equivalent? And she said, well, you could become a missionary. I go, yeah, that's what I want to do. But no. After reading that book, I thought, no. Us going in and trying to change people's cultural beliefs and the way they're raised is not right. I think we all need to find our own place and have our own belief system. And instead of trying to find fault with mine's better than yours, does it really matter?
Isn't that what's happening now in Afghanistan, right? It's like we were there for 20 years. We did the Vietnam and look at what happened. We came back with all those casualties with our tails between our legs, right? So and now if you go to Vietnam, my son who lived in
beautiful. I'd love to go there.
It's gorgeous, and it is found its way. It's found its way in its own way, and it is the superiority. So you want to hear something funny? So today, I don't know what we were talking about. Star Trek. not Star Wars, Star Trek, the old series with Will
Oh, yeah.
Shatner and stuff.
I watched all of those
Me
over and
too.
over and over.
So
Captain Kirk.
my son said, well, each story we were like looking at the repetitive template of each of the stories. And then he said, but the primary directive. And I go, I don't remember that. And they'd always refer to the primary directive. And we looked it up online. And the primary directive of the Starfleet was to not go into alien, undeveloped countries and change them. That was of course they did every single episode.
Not
And
Captain Kirk. He just wanted to have relationships
with the ladies.
I remember the blue lady.
Oh,
The
yeah.
blue lady was so, and the girl, maybe that was the same one. She had a fur dress. I remember a fur dress. Maybe she was green. I was
But isn't that
fascinated.
interesting? Like I said, oh my God, I never remember that. But the primary directive is you can go into space, but you don't go into these other civilizations and change them, inflict our way upon them. And then they would find themselves doing it because somebody attacked them or whatever. But it's interesting that all those years ago, that was something that they decided was their mission statement. And here it just blows up in our face every time I think we do it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. They do. They had an engineer from Harvard who spent time in Afghanistan, a long time. And he said he wrote a big article on it that was, I think it was on, I don't know what it was on, CNN or something, but he wrote a big article about how we're never going to change Afghanistan. They said it'd take 80 years to change it. And he said, no, it's something that has got to come from within. It's just like trying to convert somebody who's a drug addict. Unless they want to get off of it, it's not going to happen. You can do everything you can, but it's got to come from, a lot of it's got to come, you got to do the work from within. But I think as time goes by, if we wait for it, people will understand that we all have the same basic wants and needs. Why do we have to be mean, and why do we have to fight? What is it about fighting that is so, everybody just wants to just shoot everybody? It's just crazy to me. Crazy to me.
Don't you think it's a scarcity thing that people grab in a greedy way because somehow there's a scarcity they feel inside of themselves? Like why would somebody who has everything be threatened unless there was something scarce resource wise in themselves?
I just think what happens is that greed becomes like almost a fuel. And the more they get, the more they want. And the more they want, the more they want to take what's not theirs. I mean, we're a country of people that came in and took what was not theirs,
Exactly.
But there were people even before the people that were here that came in and took what was not theirs. It's just a part of human nature to want. That's why that quote you gave about wanting is, if all of us could get rid of that want, it'd be a lot better world. But how do we get rid of it?
Well, it's connected to the ego.
Yeah.
It's just the ego is connected, and it's sad. Again, that scarcity is, we think we want something until we get it, and then we have to want something else.
Yeah.
So what is that? Like it's some kind of fear that drives us to keep running after something that we probably already have. Like
it goes back to probably when the saber-toothed tigers were chasing us down to our cave. We realized that if we didn't figure out and get lots of weapons and different things, that we weren't going to be able to outsmart, and then we were going to get eaten. It's a survival tactic. I'm sure it is of some sort of nature, but I don't know. It's one of those things I don't know if it can be fixed, but the more we're aware and the more we share stories, then maybe people will understand. So what are we watching next week, Robert?
Gosh, my iPad's gone dead, I think. Hold on, let's see.
I am.
Yes, I've got a little bit of juice left quickly if I can get to it. Let's see.
Great, because I am excited about whatever it is. This was a fun night. Ruthie, we're going to have to get your.
We actually are going to see the 2013 adaptation of The Great Gatsby.
Oh boy, that'll be great. And you know, we just read Michael Farris Smith's prequel to The Gatsby in our book club. And Fitzgerald has always been one of my favorite writers. And now there's a new author that is out and that has been out for some time that writes like him in a way that I am totally addicted to his work now. Amor Towles, Amortowles. He wrote The Gentleman from Moscow, and he's got his books are just great. But The Great Gatsby. I better get to ironing some shirts.
All right, now, so you said the 2013, so that wasn't Mia Farrow version.
It was the Leonardo
DiCaprio version.
Yes.
Okay.
With Leonardo DiCaprio and
Who was she?
Oh my gosh.
So, you know, it was a bit controversial, but, you know, I found it.
I loved it.
I loved it for what it was.
It was a musical.
Baz Luhrmann.
What?
Baz Luhrmann did the film.
Yeah.
He did did Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
That explains everything, because it's a virtual cinematography feast of color and action.
Carey Mulligan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She was perfect.
Carey Mulligan.
And I love the Mia Farrow version too. Wasn't it Mia Farrow and Robert Redford?
Robert Redford, yeah.
So maybe we need to do a comparison of both of them.
I wouldn't mind that. I like looking at Robert Redford in the old days.
Yeah, I kind of think he was pretty cool too. Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we watch both of them, and then we'll talk about that next week. I've seen them a lot of times, you guys. I've seen them a lot of times, but that will be fun, and it'll be really interesting. I guess I need to get out a flowery dress.
Well, I don't know. What are we going to do?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't ever be that thin. That's the problem. A lot of these shows, the characters are so wispy and waspy, and
my boobs are too big.
Well, I'll have to think about.
I could just do from this up. I don't know. What was
You're pretty
the
cute.
hair? The hair was like, wasn't it just like a little bob with spit curl or something like that?
We'll come up with something very
Finger waves.
Finger waves, and then she had the sheer floaty hat with the dresses were fluttery.
Oh, floaty
type.
Well, I actually like that era because I don't have any waistline to speak of, and those dresses were like the waist was down at the hips, right? Most of those dresses,
Yes,
where they were sheaths.
Yes,
and they would have looked actually pretty good on me.
It was. I remember when who was it? Julie Andrews was in Thoroughly Modern Millie. She said it was just so hard to wear the beads because they always wanted to shift on either side of her boob. They had to strap her chest to make the beads hang straight down, and things men would never think about, but we all do, don't we? So well, great. That's great news. I'm excited about it. So Robert, you have recorded this. I've recorded this. Between the two of us, once you get the recording, if you will download and send it to me, then in case if I can't get mine on the new computer, I will be able to post this up on our Kathy L. Murphy channel for everybody to watch. I don't ever want to have that happen again. And I'm still going to keep looking for it because we have 2 hours of people talking about their books and their lives. And it was really fun hearing everybody talk. And
So Kathy, when you did you go into your actual Zoom account
yeah,
to the recordings?
yep.
I wonder if you saved it. You either saved it one of two places, on your computer or on the cloud.
I checked both places. I even went on my phone and I thought, well, I did one Zoom on there last week and I didn't have any trouble recording it. Maybe it'll find it on that way, because each time I go to a different device, the way Zoom is set up looks different. On my MacBook, it's very easy to comprehend everything. On this HP, you go to recordings and it's just not there. And I know it's somewhere, but when I go over to Tyler, I'm going to see if I've got a computer guy over there. I'm going to go see. So see if I can find
Does
it.
anybody know how to take off clown white from your face?
Cold cream, baby. You got your Pond's cold cream.
I don't have any cold cream.
The
Do you
best
have a
thing,
Brillo pad?
Brillo
No.
pad. Yeah.
get you some olive oil. It'll take it off.
Oh, that's right.
Olive oil, and we'll take it off and then wash your face to get it clean. But yeah, clown white's a little different, and that's why they always use the cream, but olive oil will work. So it's fabulous. It's a good look for you.
Right.
People always say, oh, you look good in every hair color. And I go, well, I have kind of mousy blonde hair. So I think I'm one of those people that can do, but it's funny. You're just, you have such beautiful red hair. You look good as a brunette and a blonde. So not everybody does, a lot of people that have olive skin do not look good blonde. I always think of the Donatella woman. She has her hair very yellow blonde and she has this very unnatural tan skin. It's not a good combination. She either needs to go with a more ashier color of blonde that doesn't clash with her skin tone, but
I think Robert would look good as anything.
Listen, he's got a wig that is frosted kind of. He looks good. He looks good anyway. We've got to get you some more new hairstyle.
I'll get some more wigs.
Yeah,
you can more wigs and join us, please.
You can find them now. They're very inexpensive, and I have a ton of them. I've given more away though. People go, "Oh, that's so cute," and I go, "Here." I mean, you can pick them up on Amazon now for next to nothing. So the problem is this one fits like a pinhead, and it's like it didn't quite come down over the ear, so I had to pin some other hair. I just make do, whatever. So
it looks fabulous, and the eyebrows, perfection.
Yeah, it's just really, I did that with a mascara and a toothbrush. The things we do. Anyway, we will be back next week with The Great Gatsby. We're going to be talking about the 2013 film, the one that came before with Robert Redford and Mia Farrow, which was 70s, I believe. And then we'll talk about the book too, because I've read the book numerous times. The F. Scott Fitzgerald, wonderful classic read. So thank you, Robert, for all the insights you give us on the backstory on films. And thank you, Ruthie, for your wonderful insight on film discussion. And I'm just here for comic relief. Okay.
Oh no, you are not. And Robert, thank you for reading those first few paragraphs. I forgot that completely.
Let's have you do a part of that every time.
Would you read because I think you read beautifully.
I think that would be, you pick a great Gatsby line from the book. That would be great to read. And I love the quotes. I love the quotes. What was the one about the moon?
It's why reach for the moon when we have the stars, right? Isn't that it?
Oh, Jerry, let's not ask for the moon. We have the stars.
Oh, that should be a shirt, man. I love that. I love that. Well, on that note, we will end for now until next week. We will be back with the Book and Film Club with The Great Gatsby. Thank you, Ruthie Landis. Thank you, Robert Gwaltney. I love you guys. Saturday night, so much fun. Let's go have some popcorn. Watch a movie. Okay. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.